I was found on Halloween, 1993. No one could figure out where I came from. This is my story. On the evening of Halloween, 1993, a family on their way to Cheyenne stopped their station wagon in the middle of a desolate road after seeing a 10-year-old girl walking by herself. They had been alarmed at the sight of the kid wandering around without her parents in the middle of nowhere and wanted to give her a helping hand. The child was dressed in a Halloween costume, a skeleton to be precise, and was later described to the police as disoriented and confused. When the family asked the child what she was doing on the road all by herself, she said that she was trying to find her way back to her hometown, Ataraxia Springs. The father in the family brought out his map from the car, but soon realized that there was no such town in Wyoming. That child, walking by herself on that fateful Halloween night, was me. The events described above are well documented, and no one is contesting the way I was found. But how I ended up on that road all by myself was never fully explained. There had been no missing children reports filed fitting my description, and they were never able to locate my parents, even though I told them their full names and phone number. All they had to go by was my own story about what happened that night, a story that they couldn't believe. In the end, after several years of therapy, I didn't believe it either. I accepted the fact that I had most likely been kidnapped by sex traffickers, or perhaps even been born into that horrific fate, and chosen to forget it and replace it with my own version of the truth. I was taught that when memories contradict reality, it must be the memories that are wrong and not the other way around. It made sense to me, and I slowly came to terms with the fact that my childhood memories were false. It wasn't until last week that I had reasons to revisit these memories of mine. Something happened that made me doubt what all those years of therapy taught me. That's why I've decided to share my story once more, partly for my own sake, just to make my memories merge with physical reality on the paper, if that makes sense, but also to reach out to others who might have experienced something similar and might also be wondering if that old, strange memory of theirs might in fact have happened after all. Some of the details in this story are based on the diary entry that I wrote down after I had been found, but I still remember most of what happened vividly, and I remember Ataraxia Springs. It was built around an old tuberculosis sanatorium that had been closed down after the discovery of antibiotics in the late 20s. This detail was drilled into our brains during school since our town took its own history very seriously. The sanatorium itself was built across the lake beside the town, where it was still standing. The older kids had a lot of ghost stories about the rundown building, stories they loved to tell around the campfire on the beach with Ataraxia Sanatorium casting its frightening shadow on the water from the other side of the lake. Other than this piece of history, the town was your average American town. My parents, not my foster parents, but the ones that were never found, were good to me and my older sister. They gave us a happy childhood in a nice neighborhood, and as far as I can remember, if it is a memory at all, nothing was out of the ordinary. Not until that night. Halloween was a big deal in our neighborhood, and everyone always tried to outdo each other with their costumes. This year wasn't any different. The air was filled with excitement, and I really loved the skeleton suit my dad had bought me. My sister was a bit too old for trick-or-treating, but she had promised to do it with me so that our parents could stay home and hand out candy to the other kids, and most likely have some time to themselves. It was all going well until my sister's punk rocker friends showed up on their bikes. I hated them. They were Ryan, Johnny, and Ashley. They gave the neighborhood a bad reputation, or so everyone thought, and they always teased me. "Hey, Marjorie!" Ryan shouted to my sister. "Are you babysitting tonight out of all nights?" Ryan continued, and said that they were going to the sanatorium. I don't remember which words he used exactly, but he said something about it being the perfect night for it, and that it was a shame that she had me tied around her ankle like a shackle. I was already afraid, looking up at their tall bikes at the end of the cul-de-sac, because I knew what was coming next. I looked up at my sister and grabbed her hand. Back then, I thought of her almost as an adult, even though she was just a teenager. She hesitated, and there was some arguing back and forth until it was decided that she would bring me with them. "Come on, Melissa," she said, and looked at me as my heart sunk into my belly. "What's the worst that can happen? It will be fun for you too, just like one of the adventures in your favorite movies." I said no, but she told me not to be such a crybaby. She didn't want to miss out on her friend's adventure or on some quality time with Ryan. I was an inconvenience, and although my sister tried to convince me that it would be fun for me too, I remember feeling like a fifth wheel. My sister left me with her friends for a few minutes while she sneaked into the garage to grab her bike. It felt like hours. Ryan lit a cigarette with his Zippo. I couldn't understand what my sister saw in him. With his black mohawk, combat boots, and leather jacket with "Fuck You" painted on its back, he looked more like the villain in the Disney movies I love to watch than the prince. My sister wasn't like him at all. She was one of the popular girls at school who everybody loved and aspired to be like. And to my mind at the time, it just didn't compute how someone as sweet as my sister could have a thing for someone like Ryan. It infuriated me. I wanted to run home and tell my mom, but I knew it would just lead to an ugly fight. My sister put me on the carrier of her bike and told me to hold on to her. We took the shortcut through the woods, which meant a bumpier ride. The sun was already setting, and the closer it came to the horizon, the faster my heart beat in my chest. Their laughter echoed between the trees, like hyenas on the hunt. I was so mad at my sister, but also at myself for letting her take me along. The water on the lake was still this night, reflecting the dark clouds above. They left their bikes in the sand. Marjorie grabbed my hand and followed the others to the old boathouse at the edge of the beach. I tried not to look across the lake, where the sanatorium rose up from the treetops like an evil castle from the movies. There was an old rowboat inside the boathouse. A wind was building up outside, sending small waves inside that lapped against the side of the boat. I felt a lump in my throat. Water wasn't my element. I could swim, but if I couldn't reach the bottom with my feet, I used to panic. So, sitting in a fragile old rowboat with a bunch of renegades didn't sit well with me. I held my sister's jacket as tight as I could in the boat. Ryan kicked the boat out of the house and grabbed the oars. There wasn't that much space, and every time the boat rocked, I closed my eyes and tensed up in anticipation. Marjorie's friends teased me when they saw how scared I was, especially Ashley. "Many kids have drowned in this lake," she said. "There's something living at the bottom that feeds on little girls like you." She laughed. "Let's hope it's sleeping tonight." "Don't be mean," my sister said. "I don't believe in any of those stories." "There have been some strange things happening in this area, though," Johnny said. "My dad told me that a couple went missing around the lake, like 20 years ago." I didn't want to hear about it. He sounded serious, not like he was teasing. I looked at my sister to see if she believed him, but I couldn't tell. And then Johnny continued, "They were never found." Maybe they just decided to ditch this boring town, Ryan said with a smirk. Sure, Johnny said. But their disappearance isn't the strangest thing about this. While they searched for them, they found this old, naked dude wandering around in the forest who claimed he was the guy who had disappeared. He was taken in as a suspect since he was way too old to be that guy. They never got any answers from him, though. He hung himself in his cell before they could question him. My dad was the one who found him hanging from the top of the bunk. We reached the other side of the lake, just beneath the sanatorium. It smelled old seaweed and rotten eggs. Decaying reed crunched under our feet as we stepped ashore. A couple of ducks flew away, scared by our presence. I held my sister's hand. The sky was covered in heavy clouds, and a rumble spread among them. This was the first time any of us stepped foot on the other side of the lake, and I could see that my sister was afraid as well, even though she tried to hide it behind her exaggerated smiles toward Ryan. He lit another cigarette. "Let's go," he said. "I've always been curious about this place." We followed him up an overgrown road. Something rustled in the bushes. I asked my sister what it was, hoping she would calm my nerves, but instead, Ryan answered, "There are ghouls hiding in there, so don't go too close." "Don't listen to him," my sister said. "It's just birds." But I was already terrified. It wasn't just the scary noises, but the entire atmosphere around this place. It just didn't feel right. Something in the air felt off. Ordinary things came off as strangely unfamiliar. The leaves on the ground seemed too large, the trees too tall, and the sky too vicious. The courtyard was covered in gravel, but there was dead grass sprouting up from it here and there. Slowly, we approached the stairs to the entrance. "Can't we go back now?" I asked my sister in a whisper. "Do we have to go inside?" The doors were locked. Ryan pulled at them as hard as he could, hoping that the old doors wouldn't stand a chance against his strength. But they wouldn't move an inch. It made me relieved, but Ryan was relentless. He insisted on trying to find another way inside. We walked around the building, struggling through the brushy terrain until we found a small rusty door at the other side. The purpose behind this door was difficult to figure out since it was almost completely inaccessible. To my great disappointment, it was open. As soon as we closed the door behind us, the thunder outside intensified in an instant, and hard rain banged on the door. Ryan lit his Zippo, revealing a small corridor inside a large cellar. The cold air smelled musty. There was graffiti on the walls, dating back a long time by the looks of it. Ryan slowly moved his lighter across the wall, reading a text that had been sprayed on it with a blood-red color. "If you close the door, it's already too late." "What's that supposed to mean?" Johnny said. Ashley, scared for the first time this night, tried to open the door again, but it wouldn't budge. "Come on, guys, I can't get it open," she said, just as if she suddenly sensed some kind of danger. "Help me out, would you?" Ryan and Johnny joined her, but no matter how much they tried, the door remained closed. "Marjorie?" I looked up at my sister. "What's happening? I'm afraid." I don't know. It was unlocked just moments ago," Ashley yelled. Everyone was freaking out, yelling at each other, until Ryan raised his voice. "Enough!" He paused to make sure everyone was quiet. "Let's just find a way up to the main entrance and exit from there. Worst case scenario, we climb out one of the windows. Jesus, relax." My sister relaxed her grip around my hand, clearly calmed down by Ryan's words. "I have a really bad feeling about this place," Ashley said. "I don't know. It just washed over me like a fucking tsunami. This strange feeling of, I don't know, just a scary feeling." Of dread? My sister asked with a shaky voice. I felt it too. You're all getting worked up about nothing, Ryan said. Get it together. It's all your fault, I said. You shouldn't tell us what to do. This was your stupid idea. Shut up, Melissa, my sister said, blushing from embarrassment. What? I said. Mom is right. Your friends have a bad asterisk influence asterisk on you. Shut up, my sister yelled. My God, Melissa. Ryan laughed. It's okay, he said. She's just scared. Moms suck, Johnny added with a smile, but still shaken up just like the rest of us. I hate my mom. She's always telling me what to and how to dress and what to think and what not. I crossed my arms in anger at their attitudes that had clearly gotten us into trouble. Well, if you listened to your mom, maybe you wouldn't be trapped here, would you? We aren't trapped, Ryan said, and led the way through the dark corridor. It felt like we walked around the cellar for more than an hour without finding a staircase, and when we did, it didn't lead to the main floor, but rather to the floor above it. It didn't make any sense. We came to a ward filled with old beds. The windows were large, but too high up for any of us to reach them. In that sense, the room reminded me of the church downtown. The windows vibrated for every lightning strike outside. Johnny pointed to one of the beds. Unlike the others, it wasn't empty. We approached it carefully. My sister covered my eyes when we came close enough to see what it was, but their scared voices and Ashley's screams told me all I needed to know. She must have been dead for decades, Johnny said. I mean, the body is asterisk mummified asterisk. Oh my God, it was Ashley. She's wearing my watch. Your watch? It's a coincidence, I mean, Ryan said, but was interrupted by Ashley. What does it mean? Why the fuck is she wearing asterisk my asterisk watch? We need to get out of here, my sister said. It's a dead person. We need to call the... Where did the lower part of the body go? Johnny said. Looks like it was ripped. No, 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 Ashley cried. It's not a coincidence. It's my watch. But you're still wearing it, Ryan said. Marjorie is right. I think we need to report this. We left the room, all scared to the bones. I know I'm wearing my watch, but her watch had the exact same crack on the glass and everything. I know it doesn't make any goddamn sense, but that was my fucking watch. She cried, holding on to Johnny. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything, Ryan said. It was just a freaking coincidence. We kept trying to find a way out, but the inside of the building was like a maze. My legs ached after walking so much. Another terror erupted from my core and spread out to my skin in the form of a cold shiver. By now, I understood, our parents must have begun to worry, maybe even gone out to look for us. I felt bad for having disobeyed them, and I feared their punishment, even though they would probably just ground me for a week. Had I known that I would never see them again, I would probably have felt something else entirely. We took some rest inside a small library that must have been used by the patients back in the day. The shelves were still filled with books, but they had all decayed over the decades. I sat down next to my sister on what had once been a luxury's divan. Are we in danger? I asked. Are we going to die? No, my sister said. It just looks scary. There's no one here. We just need to find... What's this? Ashley said, now a bit calmer than before. It's beautiful. She removed a newspaper from the floor and picked up a golden sphere the size of a cannonball. It's pretty heavy. If it's real gold, it must be worth a fortune. We all placed ourselves around her and watched our reflections in the shiny surface of the sphere, transfixed by its perfection. That's when we heard a crash from further up the hallway outside of the library, followed by a scraping sound, just as if something large was being dragged over the floor. I froze in fear when I heard that it was moving in our direction. "What the hell is that?" Johnny said. "Ryan, go and check it out." Ryan hesitated, unable to decide if to be brave or listen to his instincts. He gave my sister a quick look, and she shook her head as if to tell him not to go. The most horrifying sound I've ever heard came from whatever was slithering through the hallway. It sounded like an oversized pigeon, but also like the snickering from an old witch. "Dude, I'm sorry," Ryan said. "There's no way in hell I'm going out there." We retreated to the next room, a recreational room with a pool table. Ashley still held the gold sphere in her hands. Another crash just outside. It sounded like the entire door and some of the walls to the library had been completely destroyed. The cooing and the snickering intensified. There was excitement behind it. The same kind of excitement you would expect from a starving hag in a fairy tale who's just about to feast on an innocent child. We were all standing behind Ryan, looking into the library. A shadow appeared on the floor, followed by an enormous gray hand with black claw-like nails. We all screamed in unison and backed up against the pool table, but there was nowhere to go from here. The hand grabbed the floorboards and dragged whatever body it was attached to closer to our room. I was so scared that my knees were shaking. The menacing cooing was so loud now that I had to put my trembling fingers in my ears. My sister repeated the prayers she so reluctantly told in church. There were tears in her eyes. Another giant hand, dragging its body even closer, but still not into view outside the room. "Help me out," Ryan said. He picked up a few books from the floor and lit them on fire with his lighter. Johnny joined him. I'm sure my sister would have helped as well, but she had to take care of me. Ashley dropped the sphere and hid behind the pool table, crying hysterically. Slowly, the monster dragged itself into view. My sister released a guttural scream. I wanted to look away, but I was paralyzed by fear. The creature faced us. It was nothing more than a giant, saggy head that pulled itself forward with its long arms that were attached to its temples. A few long strands of black hair grew on top of it, and it had a long, crooked nose above its terrifying mouth. It was enough to make it the most dreadful thing I've ever seen, but what made it even worse were its eyes. Two enormous, expressionless, golden spheres. We could see our own reflections in them. It went coo-coo-coo and licked its gray lips with its black tongue. It was just about to stick its arms inside the doorframe and rip it apart when Ryan and Johnny began throwing the burning books at it. It backed away, screaming like an oversized infant. "Come on," Ryan called out. "Let's go." My sister picked me up in her arms. We ran past the monster while it was still deflecting the flames, but Ashley was too late. The second she appeared in the door, she was grabbed by the legs and pulled into the mouth of the monster. She cried out for help in a state of utter panic. The sharp, large teeth cut through her legs. The crunch when they went through her bones were blood-chilling to hear. Johnny stepped forward and grabbed Ashley's hands. He pulled until the threads still attached to her legs separated. We dragged her into the hallway, leaving a trail of blood on the floor, and continued into another ward. Ryan and Johnny put her in a bed. She was still alive. The old sheets quickly turned red from the blood pouring out from beneath her waist. "We're back," she said. Can't you see?" Johnny cried at the bedside. "No, we'll get you to a hospital." The cooing echoed through the hallway. No, Ashley said. "This is it for me. I love you. Now, go." Johnny kissed her face as she lost consciousness. No, don't. I love you too," I'm sorry, my sister said, but it's almost here. We have to get the fuck out of here. The monster spat something out that landed with a bang outside the door. It was one of the golden spheres. Asterisk, cuckoo, cuckoo, asterisk. It sounded hungry. We ran for our lives. More hallways, more staircases, more wards and offices. But no exit. However impossible it may sound, the building was bigger on the inside than on the outside. The cooing died out behind us. We slowed down. My sister put me down on the ground and let me walk by myself. She was too tired to carry me any further. This place goes on forever, Johnny said. It's a nightmare. There's no end to it. That text on the wall, it was right. Too late. We're just running in circles. Going back in time. My God, Ashley. It was really her that we saw. There's a way out, Ryan said. We just haven't found it yet. What's wrong with this place? My sister said. It's like the laws of nature don't apply here. And that horrible thing back there. Are there more of them? It must have come straight out of hell. It spat one of those balls out. Did you see that? Hell is a place on earth, Ryan said. He tried to lit a cigarette, but his hands were shaking too much. Those golden spheres looked like its eyes. Perhaps their eyes too. It spat them out to see further, you know. It appeared when we found the first one, and it sped up after it had spit out the second one. I screamed. What is it? My sister asked. Bugs, I said. Look, around that crack. Hundreds of them were crawling around a crack in the floor. Small black beetles with green spots on their backs. I hated bugs. It's okay, my sister said. Just don't step on them. I've never seen any bug like that before, I said. We moved forward until we came to an empty swimming pool. Several golden spheres lay at the bottom of it, shining in a strange moonlight coming in through the windows at the other end of the room. The faint cooing started as soon as we saw them, now coming from several different directions. I cried, but not because of the cooing. I was seeing something in the corner of the ceiling. A black shadow that slowly unfolded itself. There are more of those heads, Johnny said. Can you hear it? What is that? Ryan said, as soon as he saw the shadow. One leg after another extended out of the shadow until 8 long, monstrous legs had appeared out of its body, like an enormous spider. We ran next to the pool to get to the exit at the other end of the room. The spider quickly came down from its hiding spot, climbed down the pool, and continued toward us. The legs weren't attached to a body of their own, but to the back of a decaying human body. I screamed for my sister to pick me up, but there wasn't any time for that. I had to run, faster than I had ever run before. Holy shit, Johnny said. Oh God, no. The spider was just about to pierce me with one of its legs when we entered the door, which fortunately was too small for the spider to enter. Holy fuck, that was close, Ryan said, as we ran further away from the swimming pool. No, 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 Johnny continued, tears forming in his eyes. How is this possible? It can't be. At least we got away from it in time, Ryan said. Let's hope we won't end up back. It's not that, Johnny said. The body, he cried now. The dead body attached to those fucking legs. It was wearing my jacket. Oh God. No. Maybe it doesn't have to happen like that, my sister said. Maybe we can avoid it. It didn't work out so well for Ashley, did it? Johnny said. And besides, how do you avoid something like that? We don't know how it could happen in the first place. Calm down, Ryan said. Let's stay focused on the here and now, okay? I'm feeling a breeze. Are you feeling it too? He was right. We all felt it. Thinking it was an exit, we ran in the direction of its source, But it wasn't a way out, at least not the one we had been looking for. We came to a large balcony with open doors, looking out over an unimaginable view. "I told you," my sister said as we stepped onto the balcony. "We're in hell." In front of us, a landscape made out of living flesh and bones, spread out all the way to the horizon beneath a scarlet sky. The ground itself was moving as if it was breathing, and the leafless trees moved their branches like tentacles. Enormous creatures walked across the surface, fighting each other, and the flesh of the screaming birds above us was exposed to the weather. A strong scent of rotting meat and brimstone filled the warm winds. Slowly, a dark gas giant with violet clouds rose to the sky like a black sun, and the monsters howled excitedly to the sight of it. "I don't know about hell," Ryan said, "but it definitely isn't Earth." Millions of bugs erupted from large pores in the ground, swarming in front of the colossal planet climbing the sky. A few of them landed on the balcony. It was the same type of bugs we had seen earlier. And then Johnny sneezed, followed by what looked like a panic attack. "Damn," he said. "It crawled into my nose." "Seriously?" Ryan asked. "I can still feel it crawling around inside my sinus," Johnny said, while trying to blow it out through his nose. "Help me, please. I think it's eating its way." He sounded dizzy. "Let's get back inside," Ryan said, even though we were already running back. We didn't get far until Johnny fell down on the floor, convulsing and foaming at the mouth. My sister picked me up, knowing full well what was about to happen, but Ryan sat down next to Johnny and tried to help him in whatever way he could. But there wasn't any hope for Johnny. The convulsions turned into jerks and jolts erupting from his back. Ryan stood up, pale from the sight of his best friend shaking uncontrollably in front of him. After about a minute, the seizure stopped abruptly. Johnny opened his eyes, a bit groggy. "What happened?" he said. "Why am I on the floor?" "Are you okay, man?" Ryan said, smiling. "I thought you were going to die." My sister wasn't convinced and took a few steps back with me. "Yeah," Johnny said, smiling back and trying to get back up on his feet. "I feel fine, but that was a wild..." A sudden jolt spread through his body. "Wait!" And then he screamed. He touched his back. It was covered in blood. He screamed again, much louder now. I heard his jacket being torn apart from the inside, and a slimy spider leg grew out from his back. He begged us to help him as his face twisted in pain, but there was nothing we could do. Ryan backed up to my sister, grabbing her hand. The process was quick. One leg after the other shot out from Johnny's back as he was screaming. He tried to crawl away, but the legs wouldn't let him. Instead, they stood up, carrying Johnny above the ground. "Help me," he said, as the legs began walking away with him. "No, don't let it happen. Please, help me." The legs walked away from us with him, and none of us dared to do anything. "I'm still alive," he cried. "There must be a way." The legs climbed up the wall and walked into another hallway. "No!" we heard Johnny yell as he struggled, fruitlessly trying to grab the wall with his fingernails. "Please, no!" We stood frozen in our places until his screams faded out completely, leaving us with a faint echo of his last words between his sobs. "Mom, I'm scared. Mom!" It wasn't until the cooing increased that we began moving again. Standing still was a death sentence in this place. My sister kept me close to her, and herself close to Ryan. We reached a small room with an old piano standing against one of the walls. It was a dead end, but there was something going on behind the piano that my sister insisted on investigating. A flickering light, bright and warm, like sunbeams. My sister sat down next to the piano and tried to see what it was. "It's a way out," she said. "I can't see where it leads, but it smells like the outside." "Oh, really?" I said, happiness spreading to my body. "Can we finally get out of—" Something heavy bounced against the floor outside the room and slowly rolled into view in the door opening. My relief was immediately replaced by dread. It was one of the golden spheres. "Help me move the piano," my sister said. "Now, Ryan." I looked at them struggling with it. The monster dragged itself closer and closer while snickering and cooing louder and louder. I screamed when it appeared in front of me. Ryan and my sister used all of their strength to push the piano up to the door, blocking it. It wouldn't last long, but perhaps long enough. My sister returned to me, but Ryan wasn't so lucky. The monster reached above the piano with its long arm and grabbed him. He didn't have much time to speak, and he knew it. He picked his word carefully. Perhaps he hadn't said them before. "I love you, Marjorie." I looked up at my sister and her trembling lips in an attempt at avoiding the sight of him being pulled out into the hallway and eaten, but I could still hear it loud and clear. The hole in the wall wasn't so much a hole as an unstable rift in reality. There was a forest on the other side, but just for a few seconds before it changed into a desert that in turn changed into a beach. The beast outside pushed the piano into the room. There was no time to think. My sister picked me up and threw me through the rift. I landed on a forest floor, but not the one we had seen at first, because in this forest it was dark outside. I saw the rift floating in the air. My sister was just about to jump through it, the monster's hand reaching for her. When the rift vanished, I stumbled through the woods until I came to the road, trying to find my way home to Ataraxia Springs. The rest is history. As I said, over the years they convinced me that my story was nothing more than a manufactured memory made in a subconscious attempt at coping with some trauma. But something happened, and now I think that the coping strategy might actually have been to let myself be convinced this never happened. Last week, I received a letter. It wasn't sent by mail, but delivered by a middle-aged man who claimed that he had found it among his great-great-grandmother's things somewhere in Paris. I sat down at my kitchen table and looked at the envelope. To be delivered to my sister, Melissa Johansson, in case she's ever found after I'm gone. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. It was dated 1970. Tears ran down my face as I read it. It told the story of a teenage girl who had mysteriously appeared in Wyoming in 1889, claiming to come from a small town called Ataraxia Springs. She had gone on to live an adventurous and fulfilling life, surviving 2 world wars and seeing civilization go from horse and carriages to men landing on the moon. She had married, had a son that she named Ryan, and spent the rest of her life in Europe. She was known for searching for her sister, the man said, but she never told anyone this. I thought it was fiction or the result of a well-hidden mental illness. But when I found the old reports of a young girl in Wyoming telling people she came from a little town known as Ataraxia Springs, well, it can't be a coincidence, can it? By now I was crying my eyes out, but it was bittersweet tears. This meant I would never see Marjorie again, but it also meant that she survived that horrible night and that she lived a good life. The letter ended. All these years, and I still think of you every day. I miss you. And between my sobs, I whispered, I miss you too. Thanks for watching, and subscribe our channel to watch more upcoming amazing stories. Till then, see you later, Have a good day.